Hello and welcome to the Rested podcast. My name's Mark Selby. I love the theatre of travel, discovering the stories of journeys and learning how people use their travel time. California is a strange place these days. Conversations that flowed easily with strangers are now stilted. People broach topics cautiously, feeling their way through opinion minefields, or remain quiet in case they're overheard or misunderstood. I've been visiting the state and this country that praises free speech for 40 years and have never seen it quite like this. That looking over the shoulder in case someone's listening, almost like a fear of surveillance. Thankfully, there were some interesting conversations. On a bus, a former security officer was a keen reader who'd worked all over the world. We shared book recommendations, discussed authors, and debated the merits of physical books or e-books. She preferred physical books and always passes them on after she's read them, often at railway stations. For myself, I prefer a Kindle for carrying a library and for easily accessing my notes and highlighted sections of books. It was good to meet her. In the Bay Area, some things continue as before, but the gulf between the haves and the have-nots grows ever wider. At a select alfresco dinner overlooking the vineyards of Sonoma, people in the events industry described the challenge of organizing new experiences for their corporate clients and the juvenile antics of some entitled guests. Meanwhile, the alfresco homeless on the streets of San Francisco have other priorities. Despite the city's efforts to address their needs, the mental health and drug crisis on the streets continues, if less visible to visitors. It's too easy for us to look the other way. I headed south and took the train to Salinas, birthplace of John Steinbeck. Many of his novels, such as Grapes of Wrath, contain keen observations of the lives and struggles of migrant and local workers during the Great Depression. His insights are just as relevant today. As the train passed through the Salinas Valley farms, I watched today's migrant workers harvesting in the fields, still lifting, picking and tossing crops into trucks and trailers, the lush green fields and still blue sky in vivid contrast to the active hard labour. We were just south of Silicon Valley, epicenter of the artificial promises of intelligent technologies, but the hard labour and minimal wages continue. California is a state of contrasts, of haves and have-nots, of Hollywood fantasy and scientific reality, of greed and compassion. They've coexisted for so long. Now, as we race to the bursting of an artificial intelligence investment bubble, the focus is once again on the wonder of the latest shiny technology and its glorious potential. Basic questions such as who will actually benefit from the technology and who will suffer are handled like a conjurer's trick, distracting rather than answering. Improved efficiency and productivity are proclaimed, but who, beyond early investors, stand to genuinely gain? And how is it that such intelligent efficiency demands grotesque, inefficient energy consumption? I listened to someone on the radio today explaining that AI will soon find a way to solve the energy problem, the optimism induced by the latest shiny technology. We were told that technology would soon address the challenges of cross-border freight and people movement after the UK's Brexit referendum. It still hasn't, 9 years later. I wonder if those flying cars we were promised in the 1960s were going to provide the solution, or the self-driving cars that were meant to address safety and congestion problems. Of course, we've seen these bubbles before. In 1840s Britain, railways were exciting and attracting new investors. The potential for improving efficiency and productivity seemed obvious. Share prices rose, causing speculators to invest more and more. But commercial skullduggery, fraud, and a lack of regulation caused the bubble to burst. The value of railway stocks fell by half. Loans were called in, and investors that had sunk their life savings into the stocks were financially ruined. Thankfully, much of the infrastructure funded by those investments enabled the railways in Britain to develop and is still in use today. It seems unlikely that energy-consuming data centres will offer the same longevity and benefits. On my train journey to Salinas, the American rails took me through the Elkhorn Slough, a great wetland habitat. We were so close to the wildlife that at times it felt as if the train was floating on the water. Seals, playful otters, and many types of birds flying and feeding outside simply watched the train pass by undisturbed. A totally different experience to driving there on roads or tracks. The excellent John Steinbeck Centre in Salinas contains Rocinante, his pickup truck, custom modified with a camper top named after Don Quixote's horse. In 1960, he drove it almost 10,000 miles through 38 American states. Having made his living writing about the country, he now wanted to see it afresh. His travelling companion was a standard poodle called Charlie. The dog helps him connect with strangers, enabling him to engage with Americans who wouldn't have spoken with him otherwise. He made a point of taking breakfast in roadside diners to meet people. He regularly asked locals for directions, though in Maine he learnt it wasn't wise to ask because locals didn't like talking to tourists and tended to give them incorrect directions. He was struck by the racism he saw, the growth of wasteful consumerism, environmental damage, and the homogeneity of media, food, and consumer brands across the country, rather than the former differences in regional tastes. That bland homogeneity has continued. Steinbeck's book, Travels with Charlie in Search of America, was a bestseller. One incident resonated with me. Driving in a rainstorm in Oregon, one of Rocinante's tires blew. With difficulty, Steinbeck managed to change it, but he saw the other rear tire was about to burst too, due to the weight of the modified truck. It was a Sunday, it was raining heavily, and he needed 2 heavy-duty rear tires quickly. In the next town, everything was shut, apart from one small service station. I quote, "The owner was a giant with a scarred face and an evil white eye. If he were a horse, I wouldn't buy him." The man didn't have the tires Steinbeck needed. He could phone Portland tomorrow and hopefully get them by Tuesday, but then he went into his office, dug out the phone from beneath car parts and catalogues, and started making calls. He learnt of 2 stores that each had one of the tires. One store was 8 miles away. By this time, cars were lined up on his forecourt, waiting for gas and oil, but the man continued and rang his brother-in-law to ask him to drive over and collect the tires. In less than 4 hours, the tires had arrived and were fitted. Steinbeck writes, "I was so full of humble gratefulness I could hardly speak. I hope that evil-looking service station man may live 1,000 years and people the earth with his offspring." The kindness of strangers is a beautiful thing. And here I'd like to thank the many listeners that have asked after our dog, Willow. She fell down a railway embankment a few months ago and broke her front left leg at the elbow. Despite promising surgery at the time, the leg was amputated last week. Her recovery has been astonishing, and she is clearly keen to start exploring again. She is an excellent travel companion. Every journey is an adventure that might surprise, delight, or infuriate, but the experiences are far better than bland, homogeneous mediocrity, and the people we meet can be wonderful. Enjoy your travels, and remember the kindness. Thanks for listening to the Rested Podcast. Please subscribe for details of new episodes and tell your friends. I look forward to reading and sharing your travel stories. Please email restedpodcast@gmail.com. And my thanks to everyone that has contributed to Rested so far. Enjoy your travel.